Alright, first test with the LTO cells and the UHV ESC. I think I got everything sorted. It's obviously not connected to the motor right now. It's kind of dark down there. Say a prayer. Hope nothing grenades or catches fire. Let's power it up. .6 volts. I heard the go signal. I have, there you can see it's sending out. There's the push button. Well, that was bad. There's a lot of damage down here now. So the fire's out at least. Oh. There's a bunch of acrid smoke. I have no idea why that went that way. It started. And then the ESC fried. Whew. That is burnt. Cables to the motor are still good and connected. Thank God I had the fire extinguisher handy. Something seriously wrong with this ESC. Look at all this black smoke in here. That was ugly. Thing is, I think it actually even fed back into here. I think it toasted the Arduino. Let me clear some of this smoke out. Alright, this is only a couple of minutes later. I opened the garage door so I can, and the back door, so I can vent some of this nastiness out. The cables are warm, but they're not hot. There's, you probably can't make that out, but there's some indications of heat on the fuses, but they didn't blow. I'll measure the battery pack voltages to see what happened there. But that's still on, actually, the timer circuitry. And this is still on in here. I should probably kill the power to the car. Okay, everything's unplugged. Man, there is a lot, I mean a lot of damage. Somehow, I don't know, those capacitors are still good. They'll have to be gone over. The bracketry, I mean, it was just spewing flames. I mean, spewing flames. This is the worst fire yet. And there have been several. Thank God I had that fire extinguisher handy. That's all I gotta say. Man. Okay, well, that's disappointing. But literally, it just started to spool. You heard it. And then it immediately let go. I mean, immediately let go. Time to do a little bit of forensic analysis. Alright, so let's take a look at the voltage of these two packs after that disaster. Let's see. Let's go ahead and put this here. See if I can do this without electrocuting myself. 34.39 volts. It's actually remarkably hard to get a voltage reading with one hand on these connectors. But yeah, that pack is 34.39 volts. And this here pack number 2, 34.36 volts, 35 volts. So the packs appear to be nice and happy. Let's take a look inside. I don't know if you can make out the little, yeah, you can see it. The yellow LED shows the balancing circuit is working. They appear none the worse for wear. The second one is the same. To be honest, I already looked in that one. It's exactly the same. It's all happy and funky and nothing bad happened here. So my stuff seems to work just fine. The problem is in ESC that's not going to blow up. Alright, at this point it seems like everything that I've built is fine. The batteries appear to be fine, the cables are fine, the fuse is fine. The only thing that got torched in the control box happened to be the Arduino, which I guess got backfed through the ESC. But let's go take a look. Yeah, sorry buddy. We're going to go look at the damage. How about that? Let's go take a look and see what things look like under here. At least as best as I can. So this is just the dripping from, oh, that's burnt. That's what happens when silicone burns. But there doesn't appear to be any sort of shorts to the case, and if there was a short to the case, it would have just popped the fuse. But that didn't happen. Oh, capacitors are burnt, at least the heat shrink on the outside of them. But my cables are, well, I mean, obviously, these are loose now. But there you go. That's what it looks like in situ. Everything else appears to be absolutely a-okay, except for this thing just freaking failed. Let's go confirm that, and let's go look at the motor connections. Oh, by the way, that is the cooling fan. It was brand new, and looks like it kind of survived because, well, the zip ties holding it on melted. What is this? Oh wow, that's molten aluminum. That's bad. Hopefully the turbo itself isn't damaged, but I bet it's not. But this is bad. Well, let's go see. Let's go upstairs. Right, Simon? All right. So this is just the cooling line. It wasn't going to run for more than a couple seconds anyway, so I didn't really bother hooking that up. These look absolutely okay on the output side. I'm not seeing any damage, not feeling any damage. Burn marks are kind of minimal. Hopefully there's no significant damage to the engine, but you know, I tend to overbuild things. I wish other people did that too. So let's go and pull this thing off and take it to the bench and take a close view. Nasty. That may be powder coat, I guess. That is now mixed with fire extinguisher goo or schmoo. Let's do see some holes down in there, so let's go see. I'm going to take this off, meet you at the bench. Okay, so I know I said I'd meet you at the bench, but while wrestling to get my power cables off, I noticed some interesting things. One, because I'm not an idiot, I double insulate these things with 2 layers of heat shrink tubing. And on the negative cable, the heat shrink tubing largely actually even survived, at least the inner layer. The outer layer got toasted. But there are 0 signs of any sort of a short on this terminal. If there was a short that was enough to melt significant quantities of aluminum, I would expect to see something. There's nothing. It's pretty clean. Now the positive side appears to be where most of the flames came out, and once again, my heat shrink tubing, both layers are burned off, but the actual insulation, this is welding cable, so it's going to be really high quality. But again, on the actual terminal itself, ignore this junk. This is the APD power stud right here, and it apparently melted itself, or I guess maybe because I'm using marine grade terminals, which are pre-tinned, it effectively soldered itself to the terminal, and obviously there's nothing left of this thing in the ESC anyway. But once again, same thing. No signs of any sort of a short on the actual terminal. So clearly it was nothing I did. And even if there would have been a short here, all that would have done is just simply blow the fuse. Fuse was not blown, as you saw. So now let's remove what's left of that thing and really take a look and see if we can identify where the failure started. But I think I have a pretty good idea. It was clearly an internal issue. So yeah, I mean, these things are still, with that level of wreckage, I mean, you can still read the writing on the terminal cleanly. This whole thing would have been vaporized. In fact, what would have happened is this thing would have just vaporized and popped off, and the madness would have stopped. But clearly it wasn't anything I did. Now I'm going to go meet you at the bench. Before we commence the autopsy, I want to take a look at this piece of aluminum. This is rather impressive. I mean, it's robust, it's solid, I can't break it. And this is from the case of the ESC. And obviously, it's completely filthy and nasty. Let me see if I can get you up close and personal with this moon rock. That's one side. Other side. Not sure which side was down on the concrete, but I think it was actually this side. You can tell by this little flat dripping. All right, so there's an up close and personal look at this little gewgaw. Let me go get the other thing. Now let us examine this crusticle. All right, first thing I want to look at, here's the ESC itself. Backside of the ESC, bits and pieces are falling off. Let's take a look at the capacitors. Obviously the zip tie that holds them in place is melted. The capacitors themselves, oh yeah, they took a little bit of heat. Come on, you crusticles. So these guys took some heat. Let's see. That's a zip tie fused to gaffer's tape. I'm not sure I'm going to trust these anymore, which is unfortunate because this is about $70 worth of capacitors. These are extremely low ESR Kemet, the real deal capacitors, bought from a reputable vendor. It's unfortunate, really, to say the least. This is making such a horrid mess everywhere. Scalpel, scalpel. Get the other. Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I can trust these things anymore. It's kind of unfortunate. They appear to be undamaged. But, you know, we're going to see. This kind of stuff is the stuff that worries me, these points of high heat that they were exposed to. But we're going to set this guy off over here. Let's see if we can see anything on this one. Would this be a bad time to pitch my Patreon? I mean, if you're enjoying this, you just watched about $2,000 worth of stuff get destroyed in a split second, all in the name of research, because somebody's got to do it. And I want to share this with you guys, so please, if you want to ease some of the pain that my wallet is feeling, visit my Patreon page. I'll put a link up in the corner of the screen. That would be wonderful. You'll be doing a good deed. It's better than helping an old lady cross a street. Besides which, I mean, you know, I was going to say, well, we're having fun, but in a way, this would have been, you know, these are 100-volt capacitors, 20,000 microfarads, not cheap, made in EU. So, I don't know, I lost my train of thought. This is just kind of heartbreaking in a non-human crisis way, but we are breaking ground. So let's take a look at the back of this. Oh lordy, look at that. That is completely burned through. My little rubber isolation vibration thing is just down to its component innards, little bits and pieces of it. Let me wipe my hands here. Mostly so I can get the Allen wrench and we can take this thing off. Now, I'm not going to open up the ESC itself, and there's a reason for that. Okay, so obviously things aren't looking good for APD. However, the APD guys are actually good guys. I bear them no ill will. Oh, wow. There's a big hole right here. There's another hole right here. Well, that's probably the point of failure. I bear them no ill will, and I don't want to, like, expose any secrets that they may have, although I don't know what kind of secrets you'd glean from this other than how to start one hell of a fire. But, you know, I'm going to do that just as it's my own decision. They didn't ask me. I'm just trying to be a good guy here. And I'm not sure what direction I'm going to go yet. I am leaning in a particular direction because I am sensing that there are some significant design flaws that they need to address. Particularly if you remember our stick welding video, that was with one battery pack. This was 2 packs in series. And with one battery pack at 35 volts, we could not control the current draw. It was excessive. 2 battery packs, that much power in a small case, a small metal case, if there's not adequate isolation, because, I mean, this is thin, right? And this much of it's heatsink anyway. So you maybe have, what, 3/8 of an inch? You're going to need some pretty hardcore isolation to not strike an arc inside of this thing. And, you know, I don't know what happened here. I'm you know, obviously it wasn't wet. Those coolant lines were empty. If you look back at the beginning of the video, those silicone tubes, they were just coiled up in the footwell. There was no water in them. So that couldn't have possibly been a cause because it just simply wasn't there. So, but I can think of in, like, drone usage, where these things are sold for paragliders too. Can you imagine the horror? There you are paragliding with this thing strapped to your back, and next thing you know, I mean, a plasma arc is supposedly the same temperature as the surface of the sun. Can you imagine that thing going into your back while you're 500 feet in the air, or however, I don't know how high up paragliders go, but, you know, let's see if we can even get this off. Yes, we can. All right, so yeah, the pad is basically turned into ash and kind of vaporized. There's not much left of it anymore here. But, you know, the bracket is probably salvageable, but I think I'm going to end up making a new bracket because right now I'm leaning in a particular direction, which I don't necessarily want to disclose, but let me find a... Ew, is all I have to say. Let me find a place to set down the bracket. How about right here on top of our moon rock? Let's take a closer look. More paper towels. Let's get rid of this. All right, so this is the back side. Our moon rock was generated by drippings from this. This is the underside. Looks like there's actually a hole blown here. And heat travel this way. This is long-term damage. This is not, because of the shape of this which ones are the ones that go down? Stalagmites, stalactites, because it was sitting like this in the car, so this was just dripping down. So it looks like the heat worked its way this way, and this is where the positive terminal was. It's all just... Man, I'm getting really tired of... Yeah, the capacitors are right here. So they saw... Wow. Yes, just tons and tons and tons of just ugh. By the way, not only my garage, but my entire house smells of burnt electronic pixies. This is a straight up hole, right through the middle of this. I bet this is where it started. And I believe this is where the MOSFET bank is. I think it started here and worked its way back here. And the reason why I think that is because you guys didn't see the flame. I did. It was a jet along the top. In fact, let's take a look at the motor cables. Okay, so the top, let's call this the northmost motor cable. That one seems to be okay. You know, I mean, I did my best to insulate them, so there's no possibility it could have contacted the case, although that is kind of a bit of a silly design choice if you think about it. This much power, and you have maybe a millimeter, and the only insulation in the case is powder coat. That doesn't seem too swift, but this is clearly fried. So, and again, it was sitting like this. This is the bottom of where it was resting. There's a tremendous amount of heat here. There's some drippage happening here. But again, this is not explosive in nature. This is. But what's interesting is, remember, this is the bottom side. This is where it dripped out of. The hole is all the way up here. So I don't know. Well, remember the plasma arc thing from the stick welding video and the load testing video? This is probably a plasma arc gash right here. This is probably where it started. This is... completely I hate to keep saying but you know, I mean, everybody loves a good fail video, don't they? This is certainly, I don't know if this is a good fail video, but this is certainly a fail video. Okay, so all of these little crusticles here, and it smells as good as it looks. Actually, I have to admit, in my lifetime I've smelled so many burnt electronic things that it doesn't really affect me, but this one did, actually. This one affected Simon. You saw Simon the cat. He got, like, his nose got inflamed or something from the smoke. He has respiratory issues to begin with, so hopefully that is not a long-term effect on Kitty. So yeah, more looks like copper tracing. And I hope this isn't power copper tracing, because this is actually rather thin. I think this is, yeah, this here by the positive power terminal is definitely thicker copper. Let's just keep digging. What's interesting is there's no holes in the case on this side, but you know, this is, I'm gonna assume this is a billet case machined. I can't really tell. Maybe it's just a really good casting. I have no idea. Oh, wow. Case is melted here, too. You probably can't make that out because it's all dark. But, I mean, right here, this has got to be the failure point. And it went and then spread its way. You like that sound effect? Yeah, I don't do sound effects. It's not my thing. But when I'm looking at almost $2,000 vaporized in front of me, I guess... weird things are going to happen. Yeah, so this is all the way through. I mean, like, it goes all the way through to the top side. And of course, this is just all the way through. This is no good. These are my control wires and what's left of the connector. I mean, it's screwed in, but I'd have to dig the screws out at this point of the melted plastic. Well, I'm glad I put this paper down. But you see, after you blow up the first couple of ESCs... But again, you know, you kind of got to think about the logic here, right? So you have this much power, And I don't know if there's conformal coating on these circuit boards, but if there isn't, that would be just an incredibly poor design choice to put something that can literally strike an amp or an arc of hundreds of amps and putting it literally millimeters away from a metal plane. That would just be nuts. Hopefully that's not the case. And again, you know, they're good guys. I don't want to throw them under the bus necessarily, but you know, if I'm going to be completely honest, the reason why I bought this ESC and sent my other ESC back was that little guy that was $1,100. I sent it back because I powered it up, same setup, same circuitry, and I didn't even, you know, I just turned on the power. I didn't even apply any throttle. And after a few seconds, it just popped. And it turned out to be, at least from them, one of the capacitors on the input side, which in order to get that incredibly small form factor, which I think may be kind of a false economy, honestly. If you're talking about this level of power, trying to make it as small as possible, while I understand the need for that in the use cases that they're selling these things for, but there's also got to be a safety issue. I mean, thank God the car wasn't being driven. Thank God Jason wasn't driving it, or I wasn't driving it, and this thing did that, because that could have been really bad, you know. And the paragliding thing just makes me kind of laugh because I just can't even imagine that. It's so horrible that it's funny. Yeah, crusty circuit board. So we're actually kind of starting to expose the insides of this. Now, you know, the other thing that had me a little bit concerned was the fact that, as you saw in my unboxing video, these are supposed to be sealed, and this one was open. And I actually even commented on that. So this must be the multi-layers of copper for the high current boards, and this is what it looks like when you burn the board out of it, I guess. Just keep digging here and digging. Oh, that, dear friends, is a capacitor. And I do see a little bit of silicone here. It's a capacitor. It's a former capacitor. Sort of like a former parrot. In fact, the case is melted. The aluminum case has been burned through here. Well, here's another one. So, but I am not unscrewing the case. That I'm not going to do. And there's obviously some more in here. And because I have such long power lines, that's why I have my own bank of capacitors, and those are obviously, you know, these big boys are obviously far superior to these little things. And they're not, you know, I didn't just simply buy big capacitors. I mentioned several times that those are very special, very low ESR caps. So I don't know what this thing is, but it's going to probably keep its secrets from us. So there you go. You saw unboxing a $1,700 ESC, and now you saw destroying a $1,700 ESC. So, of course, is the motor fine? Well, little burn marks on the zip ties that hold the water jacket on, but it doesn't really make a difference because the water jacket's empty. Let's just make sure. Yeah. Spins right between the poles. The only other ESC I have here is a little tiny baby one. So I'm going to test with that. But before I hook it up, just out of an overabundance of caution, I'm going to take out my rather dusty milliohm meter, because I don't use it that much, honestly. But when you need a milliohm meter, a man needs a milliohm meter. So if you've never worked with these things before, there's actually 2 cables to each clip. That's how it's able to measure such low resistances. There's plenty of YouTube videos and Google searches will reveal all. So let's just kind of get it in the ballpark. It's a little on the low side. Zero it out. All right, good enough. Alright, and we're just really looking for consistency here. You know, as long as it's within spec, which I guess would be under 10 milliohms per phase. So basically, you need to check the continuity between these three phases. So, you know, it doesn't matter where you start. So, yeah, 6.3. And there's going to be equal continuity between any of these three. 6.2. 6.2, 6.1. So that's pretty darn good, actually. That's a good sign. Motor turns. Nothing's, you know, open in it anyway. But let's go ahead and hook it up to the little guy. This is the little guy I'm using on the micro turbo, which just kind of sits on my desk. It's almost like a, I don't know, a desk ornament, a desk toy. You know, like one of those Newton's cradles things that some people keep on there. I guess I just keep that on there. And since obviously tab A does not fit into slot B very well, not in terms of electrical contact, I'm just going to use some alligator clips. And be very careful not to short anything. But this is nowhere near, it's still not safe, but it's nowhere near as dangerous as the thing in the car. I may have to rename it because you know it's coming back, right? The story does not even remotely end here. Phone calls will be made, contacts will be made. We will figure out what is going to be our next step. And it shall rise again from the ashes. Maybe we should start calling it the Phoenix. But if I put the Phoenix in descriptions, I don't know if people will glom onto it. So once again, it doesn't really matter what gets connected to what. You just want to make sure nothing's shorting. I just have this little 4S pack. Well, little by our standards anyway. The servo tester is connected. Let's make sure it's turned all the way down. And let's see if we hear the tones of home. That's a Blind Melon reference for those of you old enough to remember Blind Melon. Power. Okay. Well, sounds good. Let's see if she spins. It's totally fine. So, motor's good, cables are good, battery's good, but sadly, the most expensive part, no good. So anyway, if you can't contribute to the Patreon, if you're not in a position to do so, I certainly understand that, but at the very least, it'd be wonderful if you guys could like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more stuff coming up. You know, thumbs up are always appreciated, and you know, there's gonna be a next iteration. The only bummer is this means we won't be able to make it to the track before they close, and I can use this to stab people with. It's very, very sharp, and there's still stuff falling out of this thing. So that's all. I'll catch you guys on the next one.